Hello everyone, this is Shannon from That's So Po, and today I'm doing week 35 of my 2020 reads. This week I read two incredibly sweet books and then I DNF'd another one. The first book that I finished was Once Upon an Eid by S.K. Ali and Aisha Saeed. This is a really sweet middle grade collection of contemporary short stories that I first heard about from Saajid at Books Are My Social Life, who I will link below, and then also Fadwa at Word Wonders, who I will also link below. This collection was just so sweet. It's all about celebrating Eid, which is an big holiday within Islam. So these stories were absolutely adorable. I really loved the way that all of them are almost just that kind of sweet holiday special type of story, really talking about the meaning of Eid and this coming together as a family and valuing being there for other people and your connection with your community. I thought that the stories were just so sweet. And there's a really nice range of stories as well, and a really good range of authors who contributed to the collection. Some of my favorite stories, these were just absolutely so beautiful. I think I cried at like half of the stories in this. They're really gorgeous. Yusuf and the Great Big Brownie Mistake by Aisha Saeed. This is all about a boy who is making brownies that his family always makes for the big Eid celebration, but maybe something goes wrong. And it's all about kind of coming together as a family and overcoming mistakes. I'm just getting so emotional even thinking about how cute it was. And then there was Searching for Blue by N.H. Senzai, and this was really, really moving. It's about a refugee family that is dealing with kind of being in an intermediary refugee location, trying to find joy over a holiday when they've lost everything. There were also two stories that really dealt with dealing with a family member's illness and still being able to find joy and celebrate the holiday. There was Donut Break Tradition by S.K. Ali. Even though I do not like puns, this was a really sweet story, as well as Taste by Hannah Alkoff. And Taste in particular was written in verse, and I thought that was absolutely so well done. Both of these stories really examined like how do we find that ability to celebrate the good things when there's also such difficulty because of a family member's illness. And the last one in the collection that was just such a perfect ending was Eid and Pink Bubblegum, Inshallah by Randa Abdel Fattah. And this was so funny. It was really hilarious. It's a family taking a road trip. They live in Australia to visit the grandparents, which are quite far away. And there's all of these kids, and the eldest is just so annoyed by all of her younger siblings, and kind of thinking like, oh, it was so much better before all of them were around. But it's all about kind of learning to realize all of the joy that you have from your family. It was really, really sweet. So I thought this collection was just absolutely adorable. Not every story in this worked for me. Obviously, some of them just didn't quite hit the right notes for me, but I gave these stories on average 4 out of 5 stars. And I think that's actually very, very good for a short story collection with so many different authors. If you like middle grade at all, you should pick up this collection. It is just the sweetest. Speaking of sweet, the next book that I finished was Check Please Book 2 by Ngozi Ukazu. This was adorable. So if you're not familiar with Check Please, this series is about a guy, Biddy, who loves to bake, absolutely loves to bake. And he's also part of a hockey team in his college. And it's all about kind of the antics and the way that he fits in within his college team, even though he's a little bit different. And also about his relationship with another one of his team members because they fall in love. And it's just absolutely so sweet. I definitely enjoyed the first volume, but the second volume I thought was even stronger. I think that I really loved the way that in the second volume it was exploring a lot of issues of kind of moving past college and what that means in terms of finding your path in life, and also for Biddy and his boyfriend coming out in public. So I think both of them as characters are very okay with being gay, but there's a lot of repercussions for them coming out in public as a couple, because for Biddy, he's from Georgia and his family is maybe not so okay with it. He doesn't know and he's afraid to find out. And for his boyfriend, Jack enters the National Hockey League and he is a star player, and the National Hockey League is maybe not so great when it comes to having people who are out and queer. And so there's all of these issues that are kind of just explored in this book about what does it mean to come out in public, and how does that affect your career, and how does that affect your family relationships. So I really loved all of those discussions, and I think I also just really loved seeing Biddy and Jack having so many cute moments together. I think I love romances where the tension comes from dealing with the outside world rather than tension between the characters, and I just love the way that they supported each other in this. Oh, so sweet. So yes, this is definitely a really, really sweet volume. Definitely recommend the series. I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars. And then I also DNF'd a book this week, which is Hope is Our Only Wing by Rutendo Tavengerwei. This is one of the books that I was reading for my August priority for African authors. And I really liked a lot of this story, but it just wasn't quite working for me. So the basic premise of this story is that there is a girl who is Zimbabwean, but she has grown up most of her life in the UK. Except that her father passes away, and he had the visa that her family was using to live in the UK, so they have to move back to Zimbabwe. And so she's dealing with all of these issues related to grief over her father passing, dealing with suddenly being in a very, very different place, and even though she is Zimbabwean, kind of acclimating to the culture is rather hard. So I loved all of that. I loved the kind of also background of political unrest in Zimbabwe and issues of corruption and issues of dealing with what's going on politically. Like, that was all really, really cool. I also liked that she makes a friend, and that friend is dealing with having cancer that has been treated, has gone away, and has come back. And so there's a lot of really cool things going on in this story in the background. But I ended up DNFing this at 54% because I just struggled with some of the stuff that was going on in the foreground. This is a YA novel, and there's some tropes that just don't work for me as well, that ended up being kind of big parts of what the story was. So in particular, there were some issues that I had with there being like kind of the popular mean girl as the villain in a sense, that was just, it didn't really work for me. And the main character sometimes fell into this kind of Mary Sue type of character who is good at everything, like knows more about politics in Zimbabwe than all of her Zimbabwean classmates, or the first day of school, is such a rebel that she won't stand up to greet the math teacher out of respect, and then he challenges her and she shows him up in math because she's better at math than him. These sorts of things. It just falls into some of those tropes that I struggle with a little bit sometimes. And I just found myself not really wanting to pick up the book, even though it's actually quite short. And I loved all of the background stuff. So I don't think that this is necessarily like a book that wouldn't work for everybody else. I think that there's probably a ton of people who would love this book, and I think that there's a lot of good things in it, but it just wasn't working for me, so I put it down. Okay, so those are all of the books that I read for this week. If you guys have read any of these, or you have any thoughts, any comments, any recommendations, anything at all, go ahead and leave me a comment down below.